To truly understand the power of the English longbow, we first have to journey back to its mysterious origins, a story that begins not in England, but in the rugged hills of medieval Wales. The longbow's roots trace back centuries to Welsh hunters and warriors who crafted powerful bows from the resilient yew tree. These early bows weren't merely tools for hunting, they became formidable weapons in tribal warfare, renowned for their strength and reliability. English armies first encountered these deadly Welsh archers in the 12th and 13th centuries, often suffering devastating losses from their unmatched range and penetrating power. Recognizing the longbow's effectiveness, English kings quickly adopted it, integrating Welsh archers into their armies and adopting their bow-making techniques. But crafting a longbow was an art form in itself. The secret lay in the careful selection of yew wood, a unique tree known for its combination of hard, resilient outer wood and softer, flexible inner wood. Skilled bowyers meticulously carved the bow from a single piece of yew, ensuring perfect balance between flexibility and strength. This craftsmanship wasn't just about weaponry. It was about creating a weapon powerful enough to punch through armor, yet flexible enough not to shatter under the immense strain of repeated use. Why yew wood? Its unique properties allowed for bows that could fire arrows at tremendous speeds, easily surpassing other medieval ranged weapons. English bowyers became masters at selecting the right wood, treating and aging it precisely, and shaping it into the lethal tool that would become the backbone of England's military might. These bows weren't small, they were nearly as tall as the men who wielded them, often measuring over 6 feet in length. Drawing and shooting such a powerful weapon required extraordinary strength and training, making the English archer a specialized soldier, respected and feared. By the time of Agincourt, the English longbow had evolved from a regional curiosity to a refined instrument of war, essential for English battlefield dominance. Its simple elegance belied its deadly efficiency. Armies across Europe struggled to understand and replicate its power, but none succeeded as thoroughly as the English. Yet, despite its humble beginnings, the longbow's greatest secrets were still to be revealed. Its devastating impact on the battlefield, the rigorous training of the archers who wielded it, and how it forever altered the rules of medieval warfare. The English longbow was a fearsome weapon, but only as deadly as the men who wielded it. Behind each bow stood an archer who had spent years mastering his craft through relentless, demanding training. In medieval England, archery wasn't merely encouraged, it was mandatory. Laws required all able-bodied men to practice regularly. Every Sunday and holiday, villagers across England gathered on archery fields, honing their skills from childhood. This regular practice wasn't just tradition, it was enforced by law. Anyone who neglected archery risked harsh penalties. Training to use a longbow wasn't easy. The sheer physical strength needed to repeatedly draw and hold the bow, often with a draw weight exceeding 100 pounds, required extraordinary endurance. Young archers gradually built their muscles through daily practice, developing immense upper body strength to unleash devastating volleys of arrows in rapid succession. But strength alone wasn't enough. Precision mattered too. Archers trained tirelessly to achieve pinpoint accuracy, hitting targets hundreds of yards away, even under adverse conditions. They learned to adjust for wind, distance and movement, skills that could decisively turn the tide of battle. Archers weren't knights or nobles, most were commoners, yeomen and peasants. Yet their skill granted them respect and status far beyond their social class. Archers were valuable assets, sometimes exempted from taxes or granted special privileges to ensure their loyalty and readiness for war. Kings knew that skilled archers could decide battles and treated them accordingly. During campaigns, archers formed tight-knit units, disciplined and deadly. They understood battlefield tactics, moving seamlessly to reposition or concentrate firepower where needed most. The cohesion and teamwork of English archers were legendary, making them not merely individual marksmen, but formidable units capable of dominating entire battlefields. Their training also instilled psychological toughness. Archers stood their ground under immense pressure, calmly loosing arrows even as enemy cavalry charged toward them. This unflinching discipline often broke enemy morale long before swords ever clashed. By Agincourt, English archers were an elite force, arguably the best trained infantry of their era. Their lifelong preparation, incredible physical strength, and disciplined teamwork created an army unlike any other in medieval Europe. But how exactly did these skills manifest in battle? What gave the longbow its lethal effectiveness against knights clad in steel armor? To understand that, we must step onto the battlefield itself and witness firsthand how these humble archers became the most feared soldiers in Europe. On medieval battlefields, the English longbow wasn't just another weapon, it was a game-changing technology. Its incredible range, rapid-fire capability, and deadly accuracy provided a tactical advantage that could devastate even heavily armored opponents. One of the longbow's greatest strengths was its remarkable range. An expert archer could reliably hit targets at distances of up to 250 yards, far beyond the effective range of crossbows or thrown weapons. This meant English archers could strike enemy formations long before they even came close to engaging in melee combat, disrupting advances and breaking morale from a safe distance. But range alone didn't guarantee victory. The longbow's true lethality came from its astonishing rate of fire. While crossbowmen could typically shoot 2 or 3 bolts per minute, a skilled English archer could unleash as many as 10 or even 12 arrows in the same time. Imagine hundreds of archers firing simultaneously, thousands of arrows darkening the sky and raining down on enemy ranks. This tactic, famously called the arrow storm, was terrifyingly effective at decimating enemy infantry and cavalry alike. Another critical factor was the longbow's ability to penetrate armor. Contrary to popular myth, not every arrow could effortlessly pierce thick plate armor, but the sheer volume and velocity of arrows made even the best armor vulnerable. Many knights at Agincourt fell because arrows found gaps in their armor, struck weaker joints, or inflicted blunt force trauma so severe that it incapacitated or unhorsed them. The psychological impact was devastating. Knights, symbols of medieval strength, rendered helpless by common arrows. Tactically, English commanders maximized the longbow's advantages. Archers were often deployed in large, well-organized groups on elevated or protected terrain, allowing them clear sightlines and extended range. Defensive positions were reinforced by stakes driven into the ground, further hindering enemy cavalry charges and channeling attackers into deadly killing zones. During battles like Agincourt, Crécy, and Poitiers, this combination of strategic positioning, rapid fire capability, and armor-piercing potential allowed significantly outnumbered English forces to defeat vastly larger French armies. Knights who survived the initial volley struggled through mud and obstacles, disorganized and vulnerable, only to face more relentless arrow fire and a second, deadly volley. The longbow didn't just dominate physically, it dominated psychologically. Enemy soldiers knew that approaching English positions meant braving a storm of deadly arrows, making every advance costly in both lives and morale. Battles were often won before swords were ever drawn, simply by the intimidating presence of longbowmen on the battlefield. Yet despite its battlefield dominance, the longbow was not invincible. Its tactical supremacy depended on well-trained archers, disciplined formations, and strategic positioning. When these conditions faltered, its effectiveness diminished. Still, for nearly 2 centuries, the longbow remained Europe's deadliest battlefield innovation. It fundamentally changed the rules of medieval warfare, proving that even knights and armor could be overcome by disciplined archers and their simple but lethal weapons. But why then did the longbow eventually fade into history? And how has it left a lasting legacy on warfare even today? The English longbow didn't just change battles, it changed the entire nature of medieval warfare. Its legacy stretches far beyond the muddy fields of Agincourt, influencing military tactics, culture, and even modern warfare. For nearly 2 centuries, the longbow shaped how medieval armies fought. It forced commanders across Europe to reconsider their strategies, armor, and even battlefield positioning. Heavy cavalry, once the dominant force on the battlefield, faced new vulnerabilities, challenged by formations of disciplined archers. This tactical shift contributed directly to the decline of traditional knightly warfare. But despite its battlefield dominance, the longbow eventually faded into history. Several factors led to its decline. The first was the immense difficulty of training skilled archers. As warfare evolved, armies increasingly valued weapons that required less rigorous, less lengthy training, such as early firearms. Gunpowder weapons, though initially less accurate, could be mastered in weeks or months, not years. Firearms offered another advantage: penetrating power. Although the longbow could pierce armor effectively, improvements in armor-making made heavy plate increasingly difficult for arrows to penetrate reliably. Early firearms with their heavier projectiles could consistently penetrate even thick armor, eventually surpassing the longbow's effectiveness. Additionally, resources played a role. Quality yew wood became scarce and expensive, making large-scale production of longbows increasingly difficult. Firearms, in contrast, relied on iron and gunpowder, materials more readily available in large quantities. Yet even as the longbow's practical use diminished, its legacy endured. Culturally, it became a symbol of English pride and military ingenuity. The tales of archers and their incredible skill passed down through generations, immortalized in songs, stories, and legends like Robin Hood, reinforcing a romantic and heroic image that continues today. The longbow also impacted future military tactics. It introduced the concept of concentrated long-range firepower, a strategy later echoed by musketeers, riflemen, and even modern artillery units. The disciplined volley fire of longbowmen became a template for future military formations, influencing how armies deployed and fought on the battlefield for centuries to come. Modern historians and military analysts still study the longbow, not just as a historical curiosity, but as an example of how technology can radically transform warfare. The longbow's rise and eventual decline teach important lessons about adaptation, resource management, and innovation, lessons still relevant today. Even now, centuries after its last significant use, the longbow inspires fascination and respect. Archery remains a popular sport and hobby worldwide, continuing the traditions established by medieval bowmen. Historical reenactors painstakingly recreate the techniques and experiences of medieval archers, keeping alive the skills and stories of these extraordinary soldiers. Ultimately, the longbow's legacy is not just about military victories. It's about how a simple, carefully crafted weapon reshaped history itself. It reminds us that sometimes the greatest revolutions come not from kings or generals, but from innovations wielded by ordinary men. But who exactly were these ordinary men behind the bow? What was life truly like for an English archer? To find out, we'll have to look beyond the battlefield, to their everyday lives, struggles, and stories. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. The English longbow was more than just a weapon. It was a revolution. A simple piece of yew wood reshaped medieval warfare, changed the rules of battle, and transformed ordinary men into legendary warriors. Its story teaches us the power of innovation, discipline, and tactical mastery. It also reminds us that even the most humble inventions can alter history dramatically, overshadowing knights, kings, and even entire armies. Yet the legacy of the longbow isn't only about past glories. It's about the lasting impact on warfare, tactics, and culture, echoes we still feel today. It's a symbol of how ingenuity, training, and resourcefulness can triumph over brute strength and numbers. But behind every bow was an archer, men whose lives were dedicated to perfecting their craft, whose stories often remain untold. Who were these men beyond the battlefield? What challenges did they face, and what secrets did they keep? In the next episode, we'll step off the battlefield to reveal the fascinating lives of these English archers, exploring their everyday struggles, traditions, and hidden stories. Because history isn't just shaped by kings and battles, it's shaped by ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Part 6, Life of an English Archer, is coming soon. This history replay this day